How people buy more during a crisis. Psychological insight. When crisis hits, panic sets in, and the once ordinary act of shopping morphs into a desperate quest for essentials. Fear drives us to stockpile supplies, often leading to purchases that blur the line between necessity and impulse. As shelves empty and scarcity looms, the urgency to buy becomes overwhelming, with emotions guiding our choices. We look to those around us for cues, falling into the trap of social proof and herd mentality as we mimic the frantic behavior of fellow shoppers. Meanwhile, marketers capitalize on our fears, crafting messages that exploit our vulnerabilities. In this video, we will delve into the psychology behind why we buy more during crisis, exploring the intricate interplay of emotions, biases, and marketing tactics that shape our consumer behavior. Point number 1. Fear and uncertainty. When a crisis strikes, fear and uncertainty grips us tightly, influencing our decision in profound ways. It's not just the event itself that causes distress. It's our perception of the threat that escalates the situation. The unknown can feel terrifying, creating a sense of vulnerability and loss of control. In response, our primal survival instincts kicks in, compelling us to act quickly and secure what we believe we might need. This impulse buying is a natural reaction hardwired into our psychology. Take, for example, the early days of the COVID-19 pandemic. News reports depicted grim scenarios of empty shelves and looming supply shortages. Panic surged as people rushed to grocery stores, hoarding items from canned goods to toilet papers. This behavior wasn't solely about preparation. It was also a way to alleviate anxiety stemming from uncertainty. The fear of missing out, or FOMO, further amplifies this urgency. Observing others scramble to purchase goods intensifies our own sense of panic, leading us to buy more than necessary. This collective anxiety creates a perfect storm for increased consumer spending, highlighting how fear and uncertainty drive our behavior in times of crisis. Ultimately, it reveals our instinctual desire to protect ourselves and our families. Point number 2. Scarcity and urgency. Scarcity and urgency are powerful psychological triggers that significantly influence consumer behavior during a crisis. When resources become limited, our brains respond with a heightened sense of urgency. This phenomenon is rooted in the concept of loss aversion, the idea that losing out on something feels worse than getting something of equal value. As shelves start to empty, the fear of missing out or FOMO kicks in, and driving people to purchase items before they disappear entirely. Retailers often capitalize on this instinct by exploiting and employing marketing tactics that emphasizes scarcity. Now, phrases like the limited stock available or only a few left create a sense of urgency that compels consumers to act quickly. During crisis, these messages resonate even more deeply as the emotional weight of the situation amplifies the fear of scarcity. Consider the surge in sales for essential during the early stages of the pandemic. As toilet paper and hand sanitizer flew off the shelves, consumers rushed to secure these items, often buying more than they needed. This rush not only reflects a desire to stockpile but also illustrates how the perception of scarcity can lead to irrational purchasing behaviors. Ultimately, the interplay of scarcity and urgency drives us to make impulsive decisions, often leading to unintended consequences. Point number 3. Social proof. Social proof is a powerful psychological phenomenon that profoundly impacts our buying decisions, especially during a crisis. When faced with uncertainty, people often look to others for guidance, assuming that the actions of their peers reflect the right choice. This tendency to mimic the behavior of those around us is amplified in high-stress situations where the stakes feel higher. During a crisis, social proof manifests in various ways. For instance, when we see friends, family, or even strangers posting on social media about their recent purchases, we are likely to feel compelled to do the same. The sight of empty shelves can trigger a collective panic, prompting others to stock up out of fear of missing out on essential supplies. This behavior is reinforced by the idea that if many people are doing something, it must be the right decision. Marketers know this and often create campaigns that highlight how popular a product is, further feeding into the desire to confirm. During the early stages of the COVID-19 pandemic, videos and images of long lines outside stores fueled a rush to buy items like hand sanitizers and masks. This collective behavior demonstrates how social proof can drive irrational purchasing, showcasing the powerful influence of the crowd on individual decision-making. Point number 4. Emotional spending. Emotional spending is a significant factor influencing consumer behavior during a crisis, as individuals often turn to retail therapy to cope with the heightened feelings of anxiety, sadness, or uncertainty. When faced with stress, many seek comfort in material possession, believing that shopping can provide a temporary escape from their emotional turmoil. During crisis, emotions run high and people may find themselves in vulnerable states. The act of purchasing can create a fleeting sense of control and satisfaction, even if it's short-lived. For example, during the COVID-19 pandemic, many individuals resorted to buying non-essential items such as clothes, gadgets, or even extravagant food deliveries simply to uplift their spirits. This behavior reflects a desire to reclaim a sense of normalcy and comfort amid chaos. Additionally, marketers often capitalize on this emotional connection by tailoring their messages to resonate with the consumer's feelings. Advertisements that evoke a sense of nostalgia or highlight the joys of spending time with the loved ones can drive sales, especially in challenging times. Ultimately, emotional spending during a crisis underscores the complex relationship between our mental state and purchasing behavior, revealing how we often seek solace in material goods when faced with uncertainty. Point number 5. Marketing tactics. During a crisis, marketing tactics undergo a significant transformation as brands adapt to the emotional landscape of consumers. Understanding that fear and uncertainty drives behavior, companies craft their messages to resonate with these heightened emotions. By doing so, they aim to foster a sense of connection and urgency, often leading to increased consumer spending. One common strategy is the use of empathy in advertising. Brands pivot their campaigns to highlight the community support, resilience, and solidarity. For example, in the early days of COVID-19 pandemic, many companies shifted their messaging to emphasize the compassion and understanding, showcasing how they were helping communities or contributing to essential services. This approach not only appeals to consumers' emotions, but also builds brands' loyalty. Additionally, marketers employ scarcity tactics to amplify urgency. Phrases like limited time only or while supplies last encourage consumers to act quickly, capitalizing on the fear of missing out. This was evident during the pandemic, where the rush for cleaning supplies and personal protective equipment was driven by such messaging. Ultimately, effective marketing during a crisis hinges on understanding and responding to the psychological needs of consumers, transforming fear into an opportunity for connection and engagement. Point number 6. Cognitive biases. Cognitive biases play a crucial role in shaping consumer behavior during a crisis, often leading individuals to make irrational purchasing decisions. These biases, which are systematic patterns of deviation from norm or rationality in judgment, can significantly impact how we perceive risk and make choices in high-stress situations. One prominent bias is optimism bias, where people underestimate the likelihood of negative outcomes. During a crisis, it can manifest as individuals believing they won't be affected by shortages, prompting them to purchase more than they need. Conversely, the confirmation bias leads us to seek information that supports our pre-existing beliefs, reinforcing panic or urgency. For example, if someone believes that a product will run out, they may only pay attention to news articles or social media posts that confirm that fear, ignoring evidence to the contrary. Additionally, the bandwagon effect can influence buying behavior. When people observe others buying specific items, they feel compelled to join in, fearing they will miss out on critical resources. This collective mindset can create a snowball effect, driving more consumers to engage in panic buying. Understanding these cognitive biases helps explain why we often act against our better judgment during crisis, illustrating the intricate interplay between psychology and consumer behavior. Point number 7. Herd mentality. Herd mentality is a powerful psychological phenomenon that significantly influences consumer behavior during the crisis. It describes the tendency of individuals to conform to the action of a larger group, often overriding their own rational judgment. In times of uncertainty, this behavior can lead to panic buying and increased spending, driven by the fear of missing out on essential resources. When a crisis unfolds, people often look to others for cues on how to react. If they see a crowd rushing to purchase specific items, they may instinctively follow suit, fearing they will be left without critical supplies. This behavior was prominently displayed during the COVID-19 pandemic, where videos of long lines outside stores sparked widespread panic buying. The more people observed others stockpiling goods, the more they felt compelled to do the same, creating a cycle of urgency. Marketers understand the power of herd mentality and often leverage it in their strategies. By showcasing how many people are purchasing a product, brands can trigger a sense of urgency and influence others to buy. Ultimately, herd mentality highlights the profound impact of social dynamics on an individual's decision-making, illustrating how our instincts can sometimes lead us to irrational choices in times of crisis. Point number 8. Post-crisis reflection. Post-crisis reflection is an essential phase in understanding the consumer behavior as individuals reevaluate their choices and priorities after experiencing a period of heightened anxiety and impulsive spending. In the aftermath of a crisis, people often take a step back to assess what they truly deemed essential, which can truly lead to valuable insights about their spending habits and emotional triggers. During a crisis, many rush to purchase items out of fear or uncertainty, often accumulating products they don't need. However, once the dust settles, there's a tendency to reconsider these decisions. Consumers may recognize that some purchases were driven by panic rather than necessity, prompting a shift in their buying behavior moving forward. This introspection can lead to more mindful consumption as individuals become aware of the psychological factors that influence their decision-making. Moreover, this reflection often sparks discussions about preparedness and resource management. People may begin to prioritize long-term planning and sustainability over impulse buying. Ultimately, post-crisis reflection not only helps individuals learn from their experiences, but also highlights the broader implications for brands and marketers who must adapt their strategies to align with evolving consumer values and priorities. As we have explored today, our buying habits during a crisis are influenced by various psychological factors, from fear and uncertainty to social proof and herd mentality. Understanding these dynamics can empower us to make more informed choices. Each point we discuss sheds light on the intricate relationship between our emotions and spending behaviors. Post-crisis reflection is an opportunity to reshape how we approach consumerism, prioritizing what truly matters. The next time you find yourself caught in a shopping frenzy, take a moment to reflect on what drives your decisions. Thank you for watching. If you found this discussion insightful, please like, share, and subscribe for more content on the psychology behind our behaviors. Let's continue the conversation in the comments. What have you learned about your own spending habits? Until next time, stay curious and mindful.